On the morning of August 6, 1945, Hiroshima. No sirens screamed across Hiroshima. No waves of bombers darkened the sky. The city woke to what seemed like an ordinary summer day, heavy with humidity and quiet anticipation. Children prepared for school. Office workers adjusted their uniforms. Streetcars rolled through the city as they always had. Hiroshima had been spared the worst of the firebombing that devastated other Japanese cities, and many believed it was no longer a priority target. That belief would be shattered in less than an hour. At 8:15 a.m., a single American B-29 bomber named Enola Gay appeared high above the city. It was alone, no escort, no formation. To the people below, it seemed unimportant, just another reconnaissance aircraft. Few looked up. Fewer still felt fear. Then, the bomb fell. The weapon was called Little Boy. It was unlike anything humanity had ever used before. In less than a second, the bomb detonated roughly 1,900 feet above Hiroshima, unleashing a blinding flash brighter than the sun itself. Temperatures at the epicenter reached over 4,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. The air ignited, concrete vaporized. Human bodies closest to the blast were simply erased, leaving only shadows burned into stone walls and staircases. Hiroshima became hell on earth in less than 10 seconds. Those who were farther from the center did not escape unscathed. The shockwave shattered windows miles away. Intense heat ignited clothing. Many who appeared uninjured at first would later collapse as radiation sickness began its invisible work. Hair fell out, internal organs failed, burns that looked minor turned black and lethal. Doctors, overwhelmed and injured themselves, had no idea what they were facing. Radiation was not yet understood. There was no treatment. There was only suffering. By nightfall, approximately 70,000 people were dead, and the dying had only begun. In the days and weeks that followed, Hiroshima became a city of ghosts. Survivors wandered silently among ruins, searching for family members who no longer existed. Rivers filled with bodies of people who had thrown themselves into the water to escape the flames, only to die from burns or exhaustion. The city's hospitals were destroyed. Medical staff were dead or dying. Supplies were non-existent. By the end of 1945, an estimated 140,000 people had died as a direct or indirect result of the bombing. The United States government justified the use of the atomic bomb as a necessary step to end the war quickly and avoid a full-scale invasion of Japan, which they believed would cost hundreds of thousands of American lives and millions of Japanese lives. Supporters argued the bomb saved lives by forcing Japan to surrender. Critics argued it was unnecessary, morally indefensible, and used to demonstrate power as much as to end the war. To this day, the debate remains unresolved. What cannot be debated is this: Hiroshima marked the moment humanity crossed a line. For the first time, a single weapon had the power to destroy an entire city in an instant. Warfare was no longer limited by armies or borders. It was now capable of annihilating civilization itself. The atomic age had begun, and the world would never again feel safe in the same way. Years later, survivors, known as hibakusha, would speak of that morning not with hatred, but with sorrow. Many called for a world without nuclear weapons, not out of politics, but out of memory. They had seen what such power did to human beings. They carried its scars in their bodies and minds for the rest of their lives. Hiroshima was not just a military event. It was not just the end of a war. It was a warning, written in fire, that the future of humanity now rested on its ability to control the weapons it had created. And once that power was unleashed, it could never be undone. 3 days after Hiroshima, the world had not yet understood what had happened. News traveled slowly through a Japan already shattered by years of bombing, shortages, and censorship. Many Japanese leaders still believed Hiroshima had been destroyed by a single, unusually powerful conventional bomb. Some refused to accept that one aircraft could erase an entire city. While scientists and military officials argued behind closed doors, the machinery of war continued to turn. On the morning of August 9, 1945, another American B-29 bomber lifted off from Tinian Island in the Pacific. Its name was Boxcar, and beneath its fuselage hung a weapon even more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. The bomb was called Fat Man. Unlike Little Boy, which used uranium, Fat Man was a plutonium implosion device, more complex, more destructive, and deadlier. The primary target that morning was not Nagasaki. It was the city of Kokura, a major industrial and military center. But fate, weather, and smoke from earlier bombing raids intervened. When Boxcar reached Kokura, thick clouds and heavy smoke obscured the target. The crews circled multiple times, burning precious fuel, unable to visually confirm the drop zone. With fuel running low and orders strict, the bomber turned toward its secondary target. That target was Nagasaki. Nagasaki was different from Hiroshima. It was a port city squeezed between hills, home to shipyards, arms factories, and thousands of civilians. The surrounding terrain would later reduce the bomb's total destruction, but it would not spare the people below. At 11:02 a.m., Fat Man detonated approximately 1,650 feet above the city. Once again, the sky erupted. A blinding flash tore across Nagasaki, followed instantly by a massive fireball that consumed everything beneath it. The explosion generated temperatures so extreme that steel twisted like wax and human bodies were vaporized near the center. The blast flattened buildings, crushed factories, and ignited fires across the valley. Though the hills absorbed some of the shockwave, the destruction within the Urakami Valley, the bomb's epicenter, was catastrophic. In seconds, tens of thousands were dead. Unlike Hiroshima, Nagasaki's destruction was uneven. Some neighborhoods were obliterated completely, while others, shielded by hills, survived with heavy damage. But the suffering was no less horrific. Survivors emerged into streets filled with burning debris, collapsed homes, and silence, broken only by distant fires and human cries. Many had no visible injuries, yet within days they would fall ill from radiation sickness, vomiting, bleeding, hair loss, and organ failure. Medical facilities were destroyed or overwhelmed. Doctors and nurses worked without understanding the invisible poison killing their patients. Radiation was still a mystery. There was no cure. There was only waiting. By the end of 1945, an estimated 70,000 people in Nagasaki had died from the bombing and its aftermath. As Nagasaki burned, the Japanese government faced an impossible reality. 2 cities had been annihilated by a single weapon. The Soviet Union had declared war on Japan the same day as the Nagasaki bombing, crushing any remaining hope of negotiation. The emperor, long silent in matters of war, finally intervened. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito addressed the Japanese people by radio. His voice, soft, distant, almost fragile, announced what many had feared and others could not accept. Japan would surrender. The war was over. For Nagasaki, the surrender came too late. In the years that followed, Nagasaki became a symbol not only of destruction, but of survival. Like Hiroshima, it produced hibakusha, survivors who lived with lifelong illness, discrimination, and trauma. Many would dedicate their lives to warning the world about nuclear weapons. They did not speak of politics or blame. They spoke of what they had seen, what they had lost, and what they feared humanity might repeat. Nagasaki was the second and final atomic bombing in history. No nuclear weapon has been used in war since. Whether that restraint represents wisdom learned or fear maintained remains one of the greatest unanswered questions of the modern world. What is certain is that Nagasaki closed the most destructive chapter in human conflict and opened an era where the survival of civilization itself would depend on restraint. The atomic age did not begin with Hiroshima alone. It was sealed with Nagasaki, and once sealed, it could never be undone.
When the fires finally died down in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world did not immediately understand what had changed. The war ended, yes, but something far larger had begun. For the first time in human history, mankind had demonstrated the ability to erase entire cities in seconds, not with armies, not with months of fighting, but with a single weapon dropped from the sky. Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. World War II was over. Soldiers went home. Flags were lowered. Celebrations filled streets across the United States and allied nations. For millions, the atomic bomb meant survival. Sons and fathers spared from a brutal invasion that never came. For others, it marked unimaginable loss, suffering that would continue long after the last shot of the war was fired. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the survivors, later known as hibakusha, did not speak of strategy or politics. They spoke of mothers who vanished in a flash, of children burned where they stood, of shadows left on stone where people once lived. Many carried radiation sickness for decades. Many faced discrimination. Many never spoke at all. History continues to debate the decision. Was the atomic bombing necessary to end the war? Did it save more lives than it destroyed? Could it have been avoided? There is no single answer that satisfies everyone, but there is one truth that cannot be denied. On those 2 mornings in August 1945, humanity crossed a threshold it can never step back from. The atomic bomb did not just end World War II, it changed the meaning of war itself. Since Nagasaki, nuclear weapons have not been used again in combat. Some call this restraint wisdom. Others call it fear. Perhaps it is both. The world has lived for generations under the shadow of what happened in Japan, aware that the power unleashed once could be unleashed again. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are no longer just cities. They are warnings. They are reminders. They are questions humanity must keep asking itself. Because the lesson of World War II is not only about how wars are won, but about how much destruction the world is willing to accept in the name of victory. And once a weapon exists that can end civilization itself, the responsibility to remember becomes just as important as the responsibility to decide. The atomic age began in fire. Whether it ends in restraint or repetition will be decided by those who remember what happened here. And once sealed, it could never be undone.